Hello and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with a Disability Policy for All. Today we have the great fortune to be talking to Marcie Roth, who is the Director of the Office of Disability Information and Coordination from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and she's also a friend of mine. So welcome, Marcie.
Thank you, Liz. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And today we'll be talking to her about emergency as well as what her office can do for people with disabilities. So the first question is, what did your office do for people with disabilities?
I came to FEMA in 2009, and my job is not to handle disability issues, but rather to work with everybody who's involved in emergency preparedness, as well as in disaster response, disaster recovery, and mitigation, to make sure that people with disabilities are fully included in all preparedness, response, and recovery, either before a disaster, during a disaster, and after a disaster. So that means getting people with disabilities involved in all of the aspects, and it also means making sure that we're providing equal access to all of our services and programs for everybody who may be affected by the disaster.
Okay, thank you. When supporting people to deal with emergencies such as 9/11, Katrina, or the recent ones in California, is there a difference between people with disability and people without disabilities?
Well, that's a great question. So people with disabilities have civil rights protections, and part of my responsibility is to make sure that we plan for meeting those civil rights protections, and that we also consider the physical access, program access, and effective communication access of the whole community. So if there's any difference between people with disabilities and people without disabilities, it's really in terms of civil rights protections. But in order to plan for the whole community to be adequately prepared for the next disaster, we need to make sure that physical buildings are accessible, that programs are able to provide equal access to everybody, and that we're able to provide actionable communication so that people know what to do to keep themselves safe or to go to a safe place.
Okay, thank you. What can our viewers do to be more prepared for emergencies?
Great question. Well, first and foremost, I think the most important thing that people can do is to take seriously the fact that everyone can not only be prepared personally, but everyone can do things to help their family, their neighbors, and their community to be prepared for unexpected things to happen. So what that means for each of us individually is thinking about what it's going to take for us to be able to stay safe, what it's going to take for us to be able to stay independent, and what it's going to take for us to stay healthy. So I take lots of medication on a daily basis, so I have to think about how I can always have access to enough medication so that even if I can't get home or if I can't get to where my medication is, that I have some with me so that I can maintain my health. It means for people who use assistive devices like a wheelchair or some sort of communication device. It means having a plan for if your equipment is damaged or if you aren't able to bring your wheelchair with you, if you have to evacuate, what you would do to be able to instruct people about putting your name on your wheelchair so that you could have it brought to you as soon as possible, or for somebody who has a difficult time making other people understand what they need. It might mean carrying some signs or some communication information with them so that they can explain to people exactly what they need. It means taking the kinds of steps that help us all to maintain our independence. It also means not just expecting that somebody else is going to rescue us or that somebody else is going to be in charge. It might mean that we learn about what things we can do to help the community so that everybody can benefit. And, oftentimes, Liz, you and I both know that people assume that people with disabilities are less able to help ourselves. And they also expect that people with disabilities don't necessarily have anything that we can do to help others. But that's wrong. And people who take their personal preparedness very seriously can get involved in the local community and be part of the solution, helping the community to consider our needs and the needs of other people in our community. We have a great video that's available, and it's called We Prepare Every Day. And it's a 2-minute public service announcement that is captioned, and it has sign language interpreters, and it's also audio described for people who are blind or have low vision. And it shows people with disabilities taking personal steps to prepare, and it also shows people getting involved in their community and helping the people in their community to prepare for emergencies and disasters. And there are lots of other tools out there as well.
Thank you, and we'll link that video to this video when it comes out. So please watch out for that video as well.
Super.
Is there anything else that I missed about emergency planning or that you would like to talk about?
So I think the one thing I'd like to talk about is, we tend to think that emergencies and disasters are out of our control. And in some ways they are out of our control, but the more we take personal steps to be prepared, the more each of us can be part of helping our community to be resilient the next time something happens. So whether it's, something very small, or whether it's, a catastrophic event like you talked about with, the terrorist attacks on September 11th, or Hurricane Katrina, or the recent wildfires, no matter what the hazard is, the more that people are prepared and the more that people see themselves as being able to take care of themselves as much as possible, the more our community is stronger for everybody. So at FEMA, we are serious about not just planning for people with disabilities, but planning with people with disabilities. And so today, having the opportunity to talk with you, we're excited about sharing this message with all of your viewers. And, we have a team of disability integration advisors, and that team goes out and what we call deploy to disasters. I just spent 5 weeks in South Carolina after the flooding that occurred in October. We had a team of 30 disability integration advisors who assisted in all of the communities that were affected. My team of disability integration advisors will soon be 285 people who are subject matter experts on disability inclusion. And that includes many, many people with disabilities. So if people are interested in the work that we do at FEMA, we have many opportunities for employment. And we also want people to get involved in emergency planning, because if you're working on housing issues, the emergency planning for emergency housing needs to be taken into consideration. If you're working on access to health care issues, we want people to talk about access to health care in emergencies and disasters. If you're working on accessible transportation issues, we want people to be involved in evacuation discussions as a part of their transportation focus. So it's really important whether you come to work in emergency management full-time or whether you just include it in what you're doing on a daily basis. Everyone can play a part in emergency preparedness and in helping communities to be more resilient. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about that and welcome the opportunity to do more of that.
Well, thank you. And it reminds me of the thing that I like to say, and I know that you know this very well, Marcie. Nothing about me without me.
Exactly right.
Nothing about us.
Nothing about us without us.
Wonderful.
That's exactly right. And that means getting involved in emergency preparedness, because we don't want people planning for us. We want people planning with us.
Thank you. And if you have any questions about this issue or any other policy issues, please go to the AUCD webpage and look for this week's In Brief. And if you have any questions or comments about this week's Tuesdays with Liz, please leave them in the space below. Thank you again, Marcie, and have a nice day.
Thank
Bye.
you very much, Liz. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for including me.
Bye.
Bye.